I think I'm to indicate that everyone should be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask that anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting please identify himself or herself for the record now by standing and stating his or her name and address, so it doesn't appear anyone is recording. At this time, I ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. So I think that we can probably go ahead and we'll first indicate that if anyone has public comment in the future, should notify Mr. Curry, the Director of Public Health, regarding any comments that you wish to make so that they can be put on the agenda. Again, we're trying to keep the commentary to about 2 minutes each time. With that said, I think we can begin the agenda. Is there a public forum today?
Yes.
Okay.
Jacqueline Wetchy, Fitchburg resident. I'm speaking on agenda item number 2, COVID-19 updates. There's no reason to overreact about COVID cases and wastewater samples. The BA2 and XE variants are so mild that even when those infected are symptomatic, they usually have little more than colds, which is why even as cases grow, hospitalizations and deaths are falling. Yes, there are a rare few who have serious outcomes, and if COVID weren't here, the seasonal flu or something else would do them in. Think about it. If a virus became more lethal, it would kill all its hosts and die out. There is an evolutionary advantage for COVID-19 to become milder. Mr. Murray will probably say I am personalizing things, that viruses don't plan. People used to say the same thing about plants until books like The Hidden Life of Trees and Finding the Mother Tree by reputable scientists proved otherwise. So COVID will evolve to survive. Dr. Michael Ryan of the World Health Organization said that COVID-19 will even outlive the human species. You can't conquer it, and it is time for you to stop counting cases, which are decoupled from illness in the U.S., and learn to live with COVID. The community has moved on. Yesterday, Becker's Hospital Review reported that BA2 has been nicknamed the so what wave. At the last meeting, several individuals took time to speak to you about our experiences. Dr. Bogdasarian, you dismissed our comments as anecdotal. You've also refused to promise to not impose another mask mandate. So I have a challenge for you. Instead of seeing yourself as a public health hero who has all the answers and is above other people, entitling you to order them around, why not accept that everyone's lived experience has value and everyone should have the right to make their own decisions about their bodies? After all, your job is to serve us, not control us. So echoing, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Ms. Rabe's request at a previous meeting, I'm giving you another opportunity to promise that you will never again impose a mask mandate on the people of Fitchburg. We've seen with the recent large COVID outbreak in Hong Kong, where everyone wore masks, that masks don't work. It's time to give up the fantasy that they do.
Well, again, thank you for your comments. I don't think I could make a promise that when you say we, the Board of Health, would never impose another mask mandate. I can't predict the future enough to make a promise like that. Certainly, we would hope that we don't have to do that. We don't enjoy wearing masks ourselves, so we appreciate your sentiments about it, but I don't think I'd be in a position to make a promise like that. I'll make one other comment about what you said. I don't know as if you're in a position to predict what Mr. Murray's going to say with respect to everything, so I don't think that was really appropriate to make that kind of a comment. Beyond that, once again, we appreciate your insight and your comments. Is there anyone else who has anything to add?
There is nobody on virtually at the moment other than epidemiologist Ms. Seltzer.
Okay. So then, should we
Moving on to the agenda.
go to the, is the epidemiologist going to make some comments, or?
Yes, she is going to give us the COVID-19 update, which is the next item on the agenda.
All right, then we'll ask her to do that.
We will welcome Victoria.
Thanks, Steve. Am I good to go?
You are
Can you
good
guys
to
hear me?
go. If you wouldn't mind, please give us an update on COVID within the city of Fitchburg.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. This is Victoria Seltzer. I'm the epidemiologist for the Massachusetts Public Health Network, which includes the city of Fitchburg. I just have a very brief update for you today on our COVID-19 cases and related matters in the city of Fitchburg. The first one is related to our wastewater surveillance. We now have COVID-19 wastewater surveillance in place in the city of Fitchburg. The first sampling date for that wastewater surveillance was March 22nd. And the sampling cadence, so the number of times that samples will be taken each week, is 4 times until April 22nd of 2022. So just about a month or a couple of weeks actually now from now. And following that April 22nd date, the sampling cadence will decrease to 3 times a week. So this is a new tool that we have in the city of Fitchburg. This is something that we previously didn't have before. And because of that, I will just say that we can't make any interpretations as to what the data that we are receiving means just yet. It is too early. We don't have enough data points, and we can't do trend identification with the information that we are getting from our wastewater surveillance this early in the stage. So while I'm happy to share that we have wastewater surveillance in place now in the city of Fitchburg, I unfortunately can't make any interpretations as to what the data means for what we are getting sent by BioBot. A couple of other comments I'll just make about our wastewater surveillance. The first one is that it is funded by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and that the sampling site is the East Fitchburg Wastewater Treatment Plant. And I believe that is all I have to say. Oh, actually, just one more thing about our wastewater surveillance, and that is we are working on making a dashboard that will be available to the public. So that way, if for anyone who is interested, you can go on the City of Fitchburg website and look at the wastewater data there. That isn't up and running yet, and that's something we're working on. So I hope to have an update for you guys at some point in the future as to where you can locate that data and what it is going to look like. That is the update on our wastewater surveillance in the city of Fitchburg. The next update is just a very brief update on our COVID cases in the city. So last week, from March 28th to April 3rd, so a full week, we had 40 cases, 40, in the city, which represents a 48% increase from the previous week. So cases are, trending up, and it's too early to say on exactly what that trend will continue to look like, on if we'll go up, if we'll plateau soon. April 3rd to April 7th, which is this week to date, so this week is obviously not complete yet, we've had 21 cases in the city. We currently have 59 active cases of COVID-19 in the city of Fitchburg and a 2.2% positivity rate as of yesterday, April 6th. The last thing that I will just comment on is hospitalizations. We have 2 patients that are in Health Alliance hospitalized with COVID-19, both of which are in the ICU. And then we have 2 COVID patients hospitalized in Haywood Hospital, neither of which are in the ICU. So again, we have 2 COVID patients in Health Alliance, which is in Leominster, both in the ICU, and we have 2 COVID patients in Haywood Hospital, neither of them are in the ICU. So that is the update I have for you guys today. I will keep you guys updated on what's going on, and in addition to that dashboard for the wastewater surveillance, we hope to get some more data up and available to the public, such as, case rates, hospitalizations, positivity rate, et cetera. So that is something we are working on, and hopefully I will be able to report back soon that that is complete. So Steve, I will pass it back to you.
Before you go, Victoria, could I ask you a couple of questions just with regard to what you told us?
Absolutely.
Do you know the ages of the patients who've been hospitalized?
I don't have the ages available to me at the moment, Dr. B, but I can most certainly find out and pass that information to the board, if that would be helpful.
And the patients who are in the intensive care unit at Health Alliance, why are they there? What are they on ventilators, or what is their particular problem?
Yeah, so I unfortunately don't know their status in terms of what their condition is, or if they have any underlying health conditions. I just know that there's 2 in the ICU, and they are considered COVID hospitalizations per that new definition of with COVID and for COVID. So I don't think I can answer your question, unfortunately, on if they are on ventilators or if there is any particular circumstances that are surrounding those hospitalizations, but I will find out the ages of those hospitalizations and get that data to the board as soon as I can.
Okay, and I have one other question. I'm sorry to impose on you.
No, that's okay.
Just in terms of the number one, the wastewater treatment or investigations you're doing, and perhaps with regard to the hospitalizations, do you know, or is the information out there in terms of what variants are causing these, the upticks in the wastewater and also in the cases in town and the hospitalizations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So right now, the dominant variant in New England is BA2, which is a relative of BA1, so both Omicron. And we don't have any specific genomic sequencing data that is connected to our wastewater surveillance specifically. But what I can say for our cases is the cases that are sequenced, and that is a small percentage of them, but our cases from not only just Fitchburg, but the rest of the Montechusett region that are sequenced following their test are majority BA2, and those that are not BA2 are either BA11, which is another relative of Omicron, or BA1, which again is another Omicron lineage. So like I said, we don't have any sequencing data that is reported out with the wastewater surveillance, but from the case side of things, right now, BA2 is the dominant variant both in New England and also in the city from the sequencing data that we do have.
Well, I'd like to commend you for being so on top of all this. I appreciate it, and also for providing us with some what we might call scientific information. I thank you very much for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, Victoria.
Move on. So we have a request for hearing from Brian Mahoney of number 8 Taft Street, apartment number 1, a heating complaint.
He's on his way
I
across the
believe
street.
they're on their way in as we speak.
Okay.
So maybe we could tackle the other items on the agenda while they get prepared, if there's no objection.
Sure. And I'll just reiterate one more time, I appreciated that scientific information that we just received. Hate to keep repeating myself.
Yes, it is. Come on in, sir. You can have a seat right at that table.
Should we go ahead, do you think, with the next item?
Yeah,
on the
while
agenda?
they,
While they're getting,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have a PowerPoint presentation, or?
I do, yes.
Okay. So you will be able to tie in, I believe there's a cable on the podium. As soon as I discuss the issues with the board. I'll give you a hand on that. We can tackle the other agenda items while they prepare, if that's okay.
Sure. So that would bring us, I think, to agenda item number 4, the approving the meeting minutes of March 17, 2022. Sandy, did you also request the March 3rd minutes?
Yes, because we had tabled that, and I read them before the meeting began tonight, so I'm okay to vote on both of those minutes at this time.
Yeah, excuse me, I skimmed through them also, so, Steve, what we might do, well, if you're standing at the podium, you have to introduce yourself.
There is a cable.
Maybe what we can do is vote to approve, or at least to discuss the meeting minutes of March 3rd and March 17, 2022. I looked through them, I didn't see any obvious, Karen, as usual, does a perfect job, so I didn't see anything that needed to be corrected or changed.
So, thank you. I appreciate the board pointing out that we had tabled the March 3rd. I had completely forgotten about that, so it would be good if we could keep the minutes updated.
Well, I thought we'd better do it before somebody else did it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I'm sorry,
My sentiments exactly.
was there, were folks able to review those minutes, both? Excellent.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of March 3rd as is.
I second.
And I am in agreement with that, all third.
The minutes of March 17th, I did find a few little tidbits. Sorry. Probably not your fault, Karen. Let's see, we did
Would you
March.
rather sit out there to let us know?
Oh, I feel bad even saying it. They're just really typo errors. I mean, I don't know that it's, I feel bad even bringing that up, but on the second page of the March 17th minutes, on the third paragraph, and this may be my lack of knowledge of what you, Newburgh, is that supposed to be Nuremberg?
It's supposed to be Nuremberg, yes.
Okay, all right, so that was one thing.
Yeah. Thank
If
you,
we
Rick.
could change that back to Nuremberg.
Yes.
And then on the fifth,
Before you jump ahead,
okay,
where was the,
fourth,
Nor-
the third paragraph, it reads mandating teachers to test or vaccinate with EUA products violates the, it says Newburgh, but it's
what page you on?
second page of the minutes of
Okay.
317.
Fourth paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4.
It says Newburgh, like lobster Newburgh, only it should be the Nuremberg code.
Wait, just one second. So you're on page 18 or the second page?
No, the minutes of March 17th.
Okay,
Thank you, I couldn't find
I
it.
got it, okay.
I thought I changed that, but it must have.
It says, mine says Nuremberg.
It does?
It's spelled differently
He's in
both
the wrong
times.
spot.
Yeah, okay, yeah, different spot. I changed it, but I missed the
see.
second.
Yes,
I missed
okay.
the second one.
Yeah, Okay.
Boy, I'm failing tonight.
You must have been hungry.
How's the new, we're good?
I know, huh? And may I proceed?
Does,
I had another.
you may proceed.
I mean, we had another couple tidbits, but insignificant. But on the sixth paragraph, no, the fifth paragraph, it says Ms. Michaud stated that she is requesting that these tests or vaccinate mandates. I don't know. I thought in my knowledge of grammar that it should read vaccine mandates. I mean, I'd hate to be so picky, but
Well, on the other hand, if that's what Ms. Michaud said, that's her grammatical error and not Karen's or
Okay.
anyone else's, so I think
Point taken.
it should stay.
stay as is then. They would just disregard that. And then here's the final one. You're gonna hate me for doing all this.
Nope, we need to get them correct, so you're doing a good job.
Okay, on the very last page, I think it's the last page, the third paragraph down, it said Mr. Westgy. And I believe it should be Miss Ms. You can
You're,
leave it
I
that
see.
way, or you can change.
you're probably right.
Page 21. Page
I'm
21.
sorry, but I'm just, I love English. The English language just fascinates me.
I do too.
Thank you very much. And so if those changes are made, I make a motion to approve the March 17th minutes.
I second the March 17 minutes with the proposed changes.
As amended.
And I'll vote in favor also.
Thank you.
And I don't know what happened with the March 3rd. Did you folks already vote on that?
We did. I believe we did.
And there were
yeah.
no changes.
It looks like Mr. Mahoney is all set. However, Mr., is it Mr. Lena? Lana. Is not here at the moment, which is an affected party to this hearing. So it is a bit early, so 5:28, so maybe we can tackle another agenda item and give him a few minutes to join us?
Sure. We could move on to item number 5, the variance request. Are we able to do that?
We're headed there.
Yeah. The 855 John Fitch Highway request to replace an existing tub with a walk-in shower, and I think there was some desire to get a variance with respect to the drainage of that tub.
So the property is, the contractor is looking for a variance from the Board of Plumbing, as well as the City of Fitchburg Building Department, to convert a 2-inch drain, which would cause extensive work and hardship to the customer, to seek a variance of the plumbing code, which requires a notice to us, the board, that the installation of a 7-inch threshold pan and a 2.5 gallons per minute shower head to avoid the use of extensive work, changing a drain to a 4-inch drain is basically the variance.
I think, didn't we discuss this a bit at the last meeting, saying that we didn't, at least my recollection is we didn't really see a problem with making that approval, but that maybe we would want to have some kind of follow-up to be certain that the drain was accomplishing what it was supposed to, just some sort of verification of that.
So this is the third request, 3 different addresses, and to the best of my knowledge, none of the work has been inspected as of yet. So I don't have any follow-up information, but as soon as I do, I will give that report.
When you say it hasn't been inspected, so it has been installed already?
No.
No.
I think the variance probably is a little bit more time-consuming with the plumbing board, which is a state board, so I'm sure that our variance process is much quicker than theirs, so I'm assuming the work hasn't been done because those variances have not been granted as of yet. But once the work is completed and inspected, I would certainly give notice to the board of follow-up information.
So we should make a motion if we decide to
Approve the variance, yes.
approve this.
Yep.
Does someone want to do that, or shall I?
Please do.
I'll make a motion that we approve the installation of a 7-inch threshold pan in this walk-in shower with a no more than 2.5 gallon per minute shower head in accordance with that. And I suppose I should say, and that some arrangement be made for follow-up to be certain that the system functions as proposed.
Yeah, I'll second that one.
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Nice job.
Motion carries. Sounds like a plan.
So the next item on the agenda is to adjourn for the next meeting. Sorry, folks.
So it doesn't appear that the property owner is with us, but I suppose we could begin the hearing process, and maybe he'll join us in time.
I'm more than happy to recount
Oh, Felicio.
any things that he misses.
Oh, he is. So if we, apparently he is with us.
Is he on Zoom?
Is he coming by Zoom?
So he's coming in virtually.
Oh, okay.
What is that one right there? It's him right there.
Just let me know
Okay, thank you.
when he's on.
Inspector Domain. So the property owner is Fitchburg Investment LLC, and representing the LLC is Mr. Felicio Lana. We have allowed him to speak, and I will unmute him so he can follow the proceedings.
Okay, and I'll just make some instructions before we do that.
So on page 4 is the hearing procedure process.
Okay. I guess I have to bang the gavel again.
Yeah, getting good at that.
A hearing at the request of an occupant of 8 Taft Street, Mr. Brian Mahoney, is about to take place. I'd like to declare the hearing open at this time, and apologize, I have to bang the gavel. Before we get started, I should introduce myself. I'm Dr. John Bogdasarian. I'm the chairperson of the Board of Health in Fitchburg. And to my right is Sandra Knipe, who is also on the Board of Health, and Ian Murray, a little further to my right, also member of the Board of Health. The purpose of today's hearing is to discuss the heat at 8 Taft Street, unit number 1. As pointed out, the owner is Fitchburg Investments LLC, and Mr. Felicio Lana is here to represent the owner of 8 Taft Street. This is a hearing in which all parties affected shall be given an opportunity to be heard, to present witnesses or documentary evidence regarding the issues to be discussed. Please note every notice, order, or other record prepared by the Board of Health in connection with the hearing shall be entered as a matter of public record in the office of the Board of Hearing. At the conclusion of this hearing, the Board of Health will make a decision whether to sustain, modify, or withdraw the order issued, or take any other action it deems necessary to protect public health. The Board of Health shall inform the petitioner in writing of its decision within not more than 7 days after the conclusion of this hearing. If the Board of Health sustains the order, it shall be carried out within the time period allotted in the original order or in the modified order. I'm afraid, probably not in this particular crowd, but in the past we've had to ask all to respect each other. Anyone not respectful of others or becomes belligerent will be asked to remove himself or herself from the conference meeting. At this time, I would like all persons who plan to give testimony at this hearing, please answer the following question. Do you solemnly swear and confirm the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and
I do.
Mr. Feliciano? Also?
Mr. Lana, can you hear us?
Or Lana, I'm sorry. Felicio Lana. I hope so, because I don't want to read that again.
Yeah, I don't blame you. He's raising his hand. Mr. Lana, can you hear us?
He must be muted.
The trials and tribulations of Zoom.
Yep. Can we do that?
Mr. Lana, I have promoted you to a panelist. Is that helpful? Can you hear us?
Is he signaling in some way, or?
If I hit unmute, it's gonna...
It's connecting to audio right now.
It's connecting to audio as we speak. I'm wondering if that's the reason.
Thank God you're doing this and not I.
Try unmuting now.
Ask to unmute.
I think he's getting that notification that he's being asked to unmute. He's
Mr.
unmuted now.
Lana?
Now he's back in the attendees section.
Allowed to talk. Mr. Lana, can you hear us now?
I think he can probably hear us, we just can't hear him.
Yeah.
I was going to say, can he indicate if he can hear us? Maybe he's not muted, is he? Chance?
No, it doesn't show him being muted. Mr. Lana, if you can hear us, raise your hand.
It's connecting to audio again.
Maybe it's like a connection issue on his end.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't hear what that comment was.
It's
Or
a
on
connection
someone
issue
else's
on his end.
Seems
We don't have to change the input to these to hear him, do we?
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
He's raising his hand.
Because the input's to Brian's computer and not this feed.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that could be the issue.
You want me to unplug it?
I can still see the,
Yeah,
I can
but
still
not up-
see the
not up-
meeting
Not
on.
up on the,
Yeah, it hasn't been. So he did raise his hand.
So he could hear us.
Yep. Mr. Lana, again, raise your hand if you can hear us.
Is he here tonight?
Yeah, surprised he's not out here.
Yeah.
So I've been watching his inputs on the Zoom. I haven't seen any sign of any audio coming from Mr. Lana.
Okay.
I believe it's technical difficulties on their end.
I believe so as well. It's-
After all, we were able to successfully communicate with Victoria earlier, so we know the feeds are working properly. I don't have any other ways to fix that. It's like, I would have also, promoting him to a panelist was something I was considering doing as well from the back end, and that didn't seem to do anything. You can try promoting him again, but I just don't know.
Would there be a way you could call in by phone and we could hear him?
If he has any of your cell phone numbers and was willing to make a call in that manner and then put it next to a microphone, that could potentially work. I understand these are obviously challenging times, and as we know, hybrid meetings can be challenging at times.
Well, we know it's not your fault.
Yes, please.
Don't believe it's our,
Plus,
I don't believe it's on our
You're
end.
bigger than I am.
889 2408.
Perfect.
We'll get it one way or another.
So you're calling him?
Yes. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Lana. How are you, sir? Good. I'm going to, we can't seem to connect over the Zoom call, so we're going to put telephone, if that's okay, and put you up to the speaker. I know you won't be able to see Mr. Mahoney's slideshow, but at least you can hear him. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, it is. I'm actually calling you from the office phone as well.
Okay, so we are next door to City Hall, so we are not in the office, different building, so we'll have to do it by this method if that's okay with you.
Yes, it is.
Do you want to use this?
He's on.
We can hear him now.
Oh, somehow he's showing up on you now.
Yeah, I was dialing your number, NDID number through the phone because I can't do it through a computer.
Well, we're hearing you for some reason.
We can hear you now, so.
Yeah, we can hear him now. He had to dial in. He had to use his phone to dial in.
Okay, so I can disconnect.
Yeah.
Mr. Lana, were you able to hear the introductory instructions that we gave?
Yes, I did. I was raising my hand a couple of times in between for that reason.
Thank God, thank you. Didn't want to read those again. Well, I'll just say that, just additionally, if there are any documents that want to be entered during the course of this discussion, if whoever is going to introduce the document, do it for the record as Exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. If there are objections to the exhibits, then I, as Board of Health Chair, will decide if it should be introduced. Don't make my decisions difficult, please. Exhibits, if necessary, can be submitted via email to scurry@fitchburgma.gov. That's scurry@fitchburgma.gov, and then forwarded to all participants of the meeting. So at this time, we can begin the hearing. All parties taking part in the hearing shall introduce himself or herself for the record, and we'll start with the petitioner, Mr. Brian Mahoney.
Thank you very much. Brian Mahoney, entering for the record. For your members today, I have prepared actually packets for everyone, for all three board members. The first exhibit that I would like to enter is a timeline of the issues that I have had with Northeast and my unit since the time that I moved in. I believe that this will provide a clear and overall picture so that you can understand what it's been for the past 14 months.
Could you go over those timelines, because Mr. Lana will not be able to see them?
Yes, I'd be happy to. It may take a minute if you don't mind. So I'll keep one
Well,
copy.
I'm actually able to see them through the computer, so you don't have to explain it. I'm able to see you on the computer, but I'm not able to speak through the computer, so you can hear me, but I'm going to speak through the phone.
Okay, excellent.
Mr. Lana, what I'm referencing here is printed and is not on the PowerPoint. I was expecting you to be here so you would have a opportunity to review it for yourself. But I will, I'm more than happy to read it for you.
Do you have copies?
I mean, I don't need a copy sent over to me, and I thought the hearing is in regards to the heating, and you mentioned 14 months, correct?
That is correct. I have been in this unit for 14 months.
Do you have copies of the timeline there? We could take those now anyway, so that we could look at them. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And then
Do you
one.
need one?
I do.
Okay,
I
I'll share.
can give it.
I'll share, yep.
So before I read through the timeline, I would like to enter exhibit number 2. This is a email that I forwarded to Roxana Benavidez on April 5th of 2021. This was in regards to a phone call that I made to Unitil to obtain information about the Mass Save Energy Program or the RISE Engineering Program. I had initially sent this information to Jillian Parker, who was my leasing agent, but I was informed that she had left Northeast at that time, so I forwarded it on to Ms. Benavidez. I was requesting that Northeast look into participating in the program. It would have provided a no-cost assessment of all 6 units in the building, and would make recommendations on changes, everything from heat to, any sort of insulation, structural issues that the building may have had.
There are 6 units in the building?
There are, correct.
Yeah.
Exhibit number 3 that I would like to enter is the specific email from Angeline Castro that I received on Monday, March 1st of 2021. This is the email that she sent to me from our conversation that day regarding the RISE or Mass Save Energy Program. On that email, as you can see, there were 3 separate PDFs or attachments. All of that explained the different facets of the program and the qualifications for it. And then,
Chairman, if I may interrupt for a moment, Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney, I just want to make sure that the presentation is on track. These, I know what Mass Save does, however, this is our relation to the request for a hearing regarding heat, correct?
correct.
Okay.
So the reason that I called Mass Save in the first place was in regards to heat, as a way to have a independent assessment come in, examine the apartment, and hopefully find a tenable resolution between myself and Northeast that would be both reasonable and cost-effective for all parties involved. I never received any information back on whether or not they even considered entering into the program, despite several follow-up emails throughout the course of 2021.
Were the emails to whom were those emails directed? To
Roxana Benavidez. I was told that I could not communicate with Felicio by Roxana, and that all issues would be directed to her, and then if she needed to talk to him, she would talk to him.
Okay, thanks.
And then the last exhibit that I would like to enter for the record was an email that I sent to Jillian Parker, who was my leasing agent. And it is a complete list of, at the time, all the issues that I had discovered in a period of about a month since I had moved in. Approximately maybe half of those have been rectified at this time. So I would, if you want me to, I can read through.
Could I make a comment on that?
You have a copy of that, Felicio. I handed it to you
No,
when
I
you
did.
were at my unit
Yes,
in
for
March
comment.
of
I think-
2021.
I asked if I could make a comment on that, or do I wait until the end?
Why don't we ask you to wait till this part of the presentation's over, and then you can make your comments, if that would be all right. So we'll let
You got it, sir.
Mr. Mahoney go
Would
ahead.
you like me to read over the timeline that I wrote out?
Well, I think we all have it. And does Mr. Lana have the timeline as well?
He does not, but I can send him a copy. I have it saved on
Right.
my laptop, so I can email a copy.
I mean, the timeline speaks for itself, correct? We have it.
Yes.
Mr. Lana, would you like Mr. Mahoney to read over the timeline now, or do you have access to it?
I would have to email it to him.
No, please, no. I can get access to it.
Okay. All right, I think that, rather than make you read through these 3 single-spaced pages of the timeline at this time, we can look at it ourselves. You would just be reading it to us, and I think at least 2 of us can read. I'm not speaking for myself, they can.
I'll refrain from comment.
Yeah. So,
I will move on to my presentation then.
yes, yeah, go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. So obviously, we are here for a Board of Health hearing regarding a Taft Street Unit 1, of which I have been a resident since February 1st of 2021. Prior to signing my lease, I did tour the apartment a couple different times. It seemed to be in good condition. But upon moving in, it was plainly evident within, really the first day that the heat was not sufficient enough, particularly moving in February when weather in New England, as we're all well aware, is quite chilly.
Let me interrupt you again. Where did you come from?
Where did I come from?
Yeah, prior to moving here.
So I was living in Worcester at the time.
Okay, so you're nearby.
Yes.
And could you, and maybe you'll get to it, just tell us a little bit about what the unit consists of, how many rooms and what
So there is a kitchen, there is a bathroom that is off of the kitchen, also off of the kitchen. So the bathroom is kind of tucked into like a back right-hand corner. In the back left-hand corner, there's kind of like a little storage area that also has a dryer vent and a hookups for dryer, washer, things like that. Moving to the left out of the kitchen, you go into a living room. Off of the living room, to the right in the back, there is a small bedroom that I use as an office. And then to the left, near the end of the unit, is the larger master bedroom, which is where I currently sleep.
I see. Do you have other family members there, or is this you're occupying it yourself?
It's just me and my dog.
Okay. Family members then? Okay.
He might as well be family, yes.
All right, I'm sorry. Just
No, totally fine. So the first thing that I would like to address is Northeast and Mr. Lana's failure to adequately address work orders and health citations in a timely manner. As I'm sure you're all well aware, any citation that comes from the Fitchburg Board of Health establishes a timeline with which the work needs to be completed in order to be in regulatory compliance. They consistently failed to do this, where whenever I would submit work orders, it was much of the same thing. They would, I'd put in the work order, I wouldn't even get a call on it, or if I did get a call on it, they'd come in and they'd, I guess, quote, fix it. And then looking over the fix, it didn't actually solve the problem.
So I'll interrupt again. You answered my question, I think, and that was, did you get response to your requests? It sounds like sometimes you did, sometimes you didn't.
It was hit or miss.
And when someone did come, it wasn't fixed to your satisfaction?
I think it would be fair to say it wasn't fixed to most people's satisfaction. When I first moved in, one of the big issues that I found was the dryer vent that is located in the little space off of the kitchen. It wasn't actually a vent. It was just a hole that had a cylindrical metal tube in it where if I wanted to stick my hand through it and reach outside, I could. and I put in work orders for that starting in February of 2021. This was not dealt with until near the end of March of 2021. So I basically had an open hole where any sort of critter could get in. In order to rectify that, my mom and I, we took pretty much whatever we could and plugged the hole and then put a bunch of steel wool in there and then put duct tape and aluminum foil over it to basically keep any critters from getting in. And at the time, it was really the best insulation that we could do. As you'll see in the next slide, I have pictures that also show the wall around the dryer vent deteriorating as well. I also made complaints about drafts in my bathroom, both coming out of the closet and coming through the window, neither of which have been addressed to this point today. There were also drafts in the living room coming from the windows and a little kind of closet space on the left-hand side that had a wall adjacent to a little hallway that we would walk through. That also was never addressed, and I also raised concerns about drafts in the office that, you know, the bedroom that I use as an office, as well as my bedroom that I currently sleep in, neither of which were addressed. The first time that I called the Fitchburg Health Department and Jason Dolmain came, he performed an inspection on April 15th of 2021. Citation was issued on April 27th of 2021, and the corrective deadline date was set for May 7th of 2021. This issue was not rectified to the satisfaction of the Fitchburg Health Department until September 22nd of 2021. And per the Massachusetts Sanitary Code and the temperature requirements, the heating season lasts from September 15th of the year all the way until June 15th of the next year. Now, as that timeline would suggest, they were in violation during one heating season, and it extended into the next heating season. The Fitchburg Health Department also issued a draft for the bathroom, and that was specifically located in the closet linen area in the bathroom. All they did was put a little caulk down, and it frankly solved nothing. If you just stick your hand in there, you feel it right away. Can't help it. And I want to back up. So in September 22nd of 2021, they installed baseboard heaters. So those new baseboard heaters were installed in the living room, my office, and my bedroom. Now, in the citation that was issued by Mr. Dolmain on April 27th, there was no heat source at all.
If I may interrupt for a minute, Mr. Dolmain's April 27, 2021 report is page 16,
Yep.
if that's helpful.
Thank you. Please let me know when you wish me to continue.
You need a copy of that?
No. Unfortunately, I'm very familiar with it.
16 of the original. I'm okay to go ahead, you guys, all right?
Great. So in that inspection, as Mr. Dolmain can attest, there was no heat source in the living room at all. Mr. Lana was at my apartment in March of 2021 and explicitly stated to me that because the living room was what he called an open room and did not have a closed entryway, that it did not qualify as a room and therefore did not need a heat source. So as a amenable suggestion or solution to this, he offered to put in a ceiling fan to help spread around the heat that is generated from the gas heater in my kitchen. Obviously, a ceiling fan is not a heat source. Neither baseboard heater in the office area or in my bedroom was able to reach a sufficient temperature. And Mr. Dolmain in his report asked that all three, or that both be replaced with stronger baseboards, and that a new baseboard heater be, or new heat source be put into the living room. I had Mr. Dolmain come to my apartment on January 27th of 2022, at which point, we were in the dead of winter. That particular day was, frankly, very cold. It was negative degrees overnight, and it only got into the low 20s at its highest that day. So when Mr. Dolmain came to perform his inspection, neither the...
If I may interrupt, that's page 14 for the board.
Thank you.
Page 14 in the Board of Health packet. That is a copy of Mr. Dolmain's January 27th inspection.
Yes, thank you. And at that time, the living room and my bedroom were not able to get up to temperature. And as you all can also see, the bathroom was quite frigid as well.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt, you had two rooms that did not make 64 degrees.
68,
I'm sorry, 68.
yes.
Could I just interrupt? Is the whole unit heated by gas or oil or?
So it is a combination. There is a gas heater in the kitchen that is monitored through a temperature reading. So you can set the temperature to it. When I first moved in, it was a very old one. They came and replaced it in mid-March with a new one that allowed me to actually set a very specific temperature to it. So that one works for the kitchen, and as Mr. Dolmain can attest, I have never once had a complaint about the kitchen. It is literally every single other room in the apartment that I have a issue with. Right now, there is electric heat in the living room, small bedroom, office, and in my bedroom.
And do you have a rheostat that you can, do you have any control over this yourself?
So the electric heat, I have some control over. There's no way for me to accurately, set a specific temperature. So if you wanted me to go, set it to 68, I'd be ballparking it.
And this may be, I think it's a relevant question. What is the rent that you pay per month for this apartment?
Currently, my rent is $11.50.
And can you estimate square footage of the entire unit?
Jason, what would you kind of say? I'd say maybe 500-600.
So it's fairly small.
It's not huge, but it's not small. For one person and a dog, it's comfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm not, I'm just trying to get an idea of
No, I completely
how much
understand.
space we're trying to heat here.
Yeah, it's, the most problematic would definitely be the bedroom. It has a kind of high ceiling, and it is definitely outside of the kitchen, the biggest room.
So the bedroom is not connected to the kitchen? It is
Not
connected to the living
even,
room?
not at all. You have to go from the kitchen through one entryway into the living room, walk through the living room, through the doorway to my bedroom to get to the bedroom.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying these things.
Very welcome.
Sorry to impose.
When you moved in, was there a source of heat in those bedrooms?
So there was a source of heat, and I will move on to the next slide.
Okay.
So as you can see right here, in the top left-hand corner, and in the middle, and then in the bottom left-hand corner, that is a gas heater. Now, that gas heater I didn't get a picture of it, and I do regret that. But on that gas heater, it had a very big warning label that said, do not install in any bedroom or a bathroom because it is a fire hazard. So when I noticed that, I had them take it out. Now, what is a little difficult to see, but in the bottom left-hand corner, behind the gas heater, there was an open hole to the wall. So you could actually reach outside and just stick your hand out. So not only when they came to take out the gas heater, they also had to repair the wall and basically put a new wall in there. Now, when they did that, they didn't insulate it at all. So it's basically just a plaster mold that they put on top of it. In terms of electric heat, there was an electric baseboard. As you'll notice on Mr. Domain's first report, he noted that the electric baseboard could only reach a high temperature of 95 degrees. That is not sufficient to heat the entire square footage of the room and maintain an internal temperature consistent of 68 degrees. And as you'll also note, the two pictures on the bottom in the center and on the right-hand side, that is what I had to do with the dryer vent.
Oh, yeah. Is that, I don't want to make you,
So, and then the last picture I want to bring to your attention is when I first moved in, neither of the entryways to my apartment had weather stripping on the door. And even to this day, you go and walk by my door and you don't have shoes or socks on, you can feel under the doorway kind of the air rushing in to the apartment and into the kitchen. I use a little kind of beanie thing whenever the door is closed to block any air from getting in under the doorway.
does that door go directly to the outside, or is there some sort of hallway or?
There is a very, very small hallway, and, basically you open the door, and then there's another door almost directly there to the right. So, and that door doesn't latch very well, so more often than not, it actually is open somewhat, so that hallway is often quite cold.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So here, this is a list of the inadequate heating apparatus that were in my apartment when I moved in. The gas heater, as I mentioned, is probably the most effective heating source that I have in my apartment, and continue to have. As I noted before, there was no available heat source in the living room, and there was not an available heat source in the living room until late September. And as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Lana stated that since it was an open room, the living room did not require a heat source. Frankly, I knew when he said that to me that it was not true, but in the light of trying to get done what I needed to get done, I did not say anything at that time. In the small bedroom that I use as an office, there was only a 2-foot baseboard heater. If you turned it on, frankly, you wouldn't know it was on. And as I mentioned, the front baseboard, or the main bedroom, the baseboard heater only reached 95 degrees. And the gas heater that was also in the bedroom from the previous slide had the warning sign. It took 7 months to put heat sources in every room. And given my previous experiences with Northeast and Mr. Lana, I had significant concerns about whether or not that would be sufficient for this past winter, as subsequent inspections with Mr. Dolmain confirmed, those were accurate. Yes.
So you've been there 2 winters, essentially, February of 2021 until now?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Did you have hot water?
I did, yes.
Okay, so you were able to shower and stuff okay?
Mostly, yes. As I will have another fellow tenant attest, when Mr. Dolmain was at my apartment in January of this year, my bathtub froze, and it didn't unfreeze until the next day. So in order to shower, I had to use his, he lives on the 3rd floor on 10 Taft. So in order to shower, I had to use his shower on 2 separate occasions.
So were the pipes frozen?
Both. My actual bathtub was frozen, and the pipes down in the basement were also frozen. Thank you.
Steve, where is Taft Street exactly? Do you know?
Taft Street runs to, it's beside Long Joe, actually. It's a very steep hill, runs from Spring Street to, from Academy,
It's right off of Mount Grove.
Pritchard all the way up to,
Simmons.
Oh, okay.
It's
Over by Long
probably the
Joe School.
steepest
the old high school.
street in Fitchburg.
Okay.
I like to call it Heartbreak Hill for cars.
There's a few of those around.
Certainly is that.
All right, do you have anything else to add, or?
I do have a few more slides. As I mentioned, they failed to address what are systemic heat issues for a variety of reasons. This not only concerns the failure to provide adequate heat in terms of actual heat sources, but failure to provide appropriate insulation, adequate windows to keep drafts out, and making what I see as, reasonable expectations of a tenant for a landlord or property owner to keep the living conditions, within habitable reason. For most of my time, that has not generally been the case. So one of the biggest issues that I had was, again, with drafts. Now, with the first inspection that Mr. Dolmain did back in April of 2021, obviously Northeast did not meet that corrective deadline date. However, in further communications with Felicio, Mr. Dolmain told me that over the period of the summer, when it was not heating season, that Northeast would come in and input heat sources, as well as fix some of the faulty insulation that was in the basement. This was not something that I had personally considered, and was something that Mr. Lana suggested and said that he would do on his own, as a extra corrective measure, and a show of good faith, something I was more than happy to hear. At that point in time, I went down and looked in the basement. These are examples of what the installation looked like. So as you will see, this was the installation in September of 2021. You have water damage, mold, falling insulation. You have insulation that is basically coming out. And in my mind, this explained why my floors are so bloody cold. You know, I'd stand on the floors and my feet would freeze and I'd have to curl my toes. So wear socks, double socks, or have a really good pair of LL Bean slippers, just to kind of keep your feet warm. So this kind of goes to the fact that the building itself is over 100 years old. Now, a building that's over 100 years old needs a lot of upkeep, as it has now and will continue to develop more structural and mechanical issues that are in need of pressing attention. Even low and moderate priced housing must have adequate heat sources per the Massachusetts Sanitary Code 410-200 and 410-201, and they must be within compliance from September 15th to June 15th. Now, some of the expectations, as I just mentioned, are that the property owner present reasonable fixes to help offset some of the most pressing issues, which are very, very frigid drafts that flow through every single room, and that they respond in a timely manner to concerns that the tenant has. I don't think that's outside of reason. Now, Mr. Lana stated that he went in and fixed some of the insulation in October of 2021. This is what the insulation continues to look like in December of 2021. As you can see, it still looks, well, frankly, like something out of, you know, a Jason movie or, you know, something else.
So Mr. Lana did this himself by his own hand?
No, he has maintenance technicians that come in. He does not do any of this.
I see.
As Mr. Lana stated to me back in February, when admittedly I did call him a slumlord, he said that he owns $150 million in properties, buddy, and he, you know, basically is too important to be doing work like that. The reality of the situation is that Northeast and Mr. Lana continue to do the absolute bare minimum to maintain regulatory compliance, and that they often choose not to even do the bare minimum, as evidenced by it took 7 months to even put a heat source in my living room, until their hand is absolutely forced. And I did want to propose a couple remedies for the board. One, that over the course of this upcoming winter for 2022 and 2023, that they perform routine inspections of the building, not just my unit, but of the building, every 45 days. Of course, that is negotiable. And then also to utilize the RISE Energy program that I referenced earlier on, to have an independent assessment of the building done and a list of fixes for it, and a copy of that assessment, which will be provided to the board as well as the Fitchburg Health Department. Now, I'd like to finish by showing you the installation most recently in March of 2022. In a email to Mr. Dolmain, Mr. Lana stated that he examined the insulation and the wiring in the basement and said that it looked good. I would make an argument that that is not the case. What they did do is in the top right-hand corner, I made sure to take a picture of the 3 rows of insulation that they put in, that they will reference as fixing the insulation. There's far more than 3 rows of insulation that need to, frankly, be corrected. And lastly, the picture of the tub is coated in ice. As Ms. Knipe had asked, that is what my tub looked like on the day that Mr. Dolmain came to inspect it in January. In the top right-hand corner, there is a picture of a moldy wall that leads down into the basement. And also, in the bottom right-hand corner, you will see what is a window that leads directly into the basement. What they did do is they basically put particle board over it and then a little caulk on it. And this was done in December of 2021, and it is already starting to fall away. And that concludes the presentation that I have prepared.
Thanks very much.
Very welcome.
That was very thorough. Did Mr. Domain want to say anything next, or should we go to Mr. Lana next? Mr. Lana. All right. Have we able to hear us, Mr. Lana, through all that? They're saying no signal up there.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So,
Okay.
you may present your side of the story.
Okay. Well, first I wanted to ask you, and it was very hard for me to sit silent through a bunch of false accusations and misrepresentation. I just wanted to say that, but I respect your request to sit quiet and wait until the end. But I'll tell you that it was extremely hot. So first, let's start out by moving. Gentleman moves into this unit in, I believe it was February, which was on one of the coldest month of a winter time for us, January, February. We have a moving inspection. We have a procedure that we normally do. The moving inspections are signed by all of our tenants. We walk every inch of every apartment every time we do a move-in. We verify accounts through Unitil. We verify gas. We verify all that stuff through the tenants at move-ins. So no alteration has ever been done to this property. When I speak of alterations, I mean no rooms were added, no rooms were taken down. This building's been there for a very long time. I have pictures of move-in at the time of move-in. And the building has been the same way. Since we purchased the property, we purchased with the heating equipment inside. We've added more efficient heating equipment to try to please the tenant. We try to edit, try to make more accommodation, as he himself spoke about that. So he moves in February of 2021, goes through the apartment. The apartment the showing and in the move-in, nothing has changed. Everything has been the same. He was probably, if I'm assuming, if I was able to say it correctly, but I don't have the file in front of me, I would say that he probably looked at that apartment 2 weeks prior to move-in or 3 weeks prior to move-in, right at the end of January. He must have observed the temperature in the apartment at the time of showings. And at move-in as well. This is a two-bedroom apartment, not an office. It's a two-bedroom apartment. Has a bay windows on the large bedroom, which is a 14 by 16 foot, with 14-foot ceilings. Bay windows on the living room. And it has two source of heating system, which one of them, and every time we move somebody in Fitchburg, Gardner area, we normally tell all of our tenants to utilize the gas source of heating system first, then utilize the electric heating system that is also provided on each bedroom or each room. Moving on to his comment about he made several complaints and only half a dozen of complaints were addressed. I very much so seem to question that answer because he seems well educated and well done performance. If it was all true, he would have documentation to back up the half a dozen of the stuff that hasn't been completed. Not only that, he would also ask the health inspector for the other 6 items that wasn't completed, or half a dozen of the items that wasn't completed at the time of inspection from the health department. The health agent that inspected the unit, you guys know his credentials. You know how long he's been there. You know how long you worked with the department. He does this day in and day out. If it was anything else in there, with doors being not locking, with draft on doors, I am almost to say, I'll bet my life on it that he would not himself, without the tenant pointing this out, if this was a fact, he would have picked that up himself because he was there for the heat. What is the first thing you do? You check for direct effect of the opposite of heating, which is the cold coming in. Moving on to drafts. I'm not saying that is not draft in the unit. I don't think the health inspector cannot state that it doesn't have draft as well. I don't know of a property in Massachusetts that doesn't have a draft windows, corners, or walls. Moving on to the comment about the living room heated or open living room. His kitchen is about a 12 by 14 room. His bathroom is right off the kitchen, which is 4 feet by 6 feet wide. In 17 years of property management, I've never, ever in my life seen a tub water freeze. And I said to the health inspector, and never once have ever got a complaint from the gentleman in regards to a frozen pipe. And that frozen pipe comment, it was added because I had it written down that I was going to question, how can a tub freeze without the pipe freeze? So I don't have the health department inspection of that day. I'm sure you guys do. Could you please tell me if it states in there frozen pipe?
So on January 31st, sir, Mr. Dolmain wrote a report from a January 27th inspection that the bathroom was registering at 38 degrees.
No, I'm not questioning the temperature in the bathroom. I'm asking if it was stated that the pipes were frozen.
Well, I think you could assume that I believe the third comment Mr. Dolmain wrote on that same report says a frozen drain to shower.
Yeah, drain, but not water pipes. As we know, hot water freezes 10 times quicker than cold water. So drain pipe was frozen due to a heating system in the bathroom, which has its own heating system. A 4 feet wide by 6 feet long bathroom has its own 10,000 BTU electric fan heater being off for a few days in January. Everything would have froze underneath as well. How can underneath, where you saw some pictures of a shutoff of a cold and hot water, just exposed, not being froze, but the tub does. Magically, the tub was froze and the drain, but the water lines, which is plastic, and it's direct below the tub, wasn't frozen. But let's move on.
May I ask a quick question, sir? So are you saying that the heat was not turned on that caused this issue?
I am not only saying that, but I'm guaranteeing you that. And at any day going forward, I'm willing to bet anything with anybody that would never, ever happen. And I also have a statement, so is the health inspector and the wire inspector from my electrician, that all the heating system in all those units, in all those rooms are 1,000% satisfied. But let me move on. The gas heater
I didn't hear the
that
last
is
word.
in the,
He said 1,000% what, sir?
I am willing to guarantee 1,000% that would never happen, that the tub would have froze if the heat was on. Now, keep in mind one other thing. This unit exists for over 100 years. He's not the first tenant. That unit wasn't built for him. We, and Jason, as a health inspector, you can see or pull records if we were ever there for the heating issues on the previous tenants. Moving on to a gas heater on the kitchen, which is a 12 by 14 or 14 by 16.
Sir, if I may interrupt you one more time. Mr. Dalmain is here and in the room. You can ask him questions if you wish.
No, thank you. I was a little hard for me to recognize him with those beard, but I was able to identify it through that.
I just don't know if you
I don't
can-
have any questions for him.
Okay.
Thank you, though. So the kitchen, it is as I stated, a 14 by 16 or 12 by 16 wide kitchen, which has a 35,000 BTU gas heater, which is sufficient enough to heat a 1,800 square foot apartment, open area. Now, when we say open area, if you leave the doors to other areas that you have an electric heater on it, that you do not want to use because of the expense of the electricity, which that was translated to me in on the emails to our office, that I will not turn the heat on high electric due to the fact of the cost of electricity. Moving on to the kitchen heater, 35,000 BTU gas heater on a 14 by 16. Let's take it the large section of the kitchen. That heat is sufficient to heat up an 1,800 square foot open area. And this apartment is about, I would say, 680 square feet, if that. Moving on to the temperatures, or let me just see here. One of the comments that were made about not being able to control the electric heaters on digitally setting up 68 or 64, it's 72. You can't do those on the electric baseboard heaters. Those are only controlled by off, medium, and high. Those are the controls of the electric heaters. It does have a thermostat. He was trying to find the word for it. It's a thermostat on his living room wall that controls the kitchen heater, which the day that he states that I made an absurd comment, which didn't happen the way he stated. Again, I asked him, why is the heater thermostat set at 63 degrees? He stated to me that that's what he likes to be set at, which I always recommended. And if he's willing to say, you know, this to you guys, I specific told them to utilize as well the gas heater as your primary source of heat due to the high electric rates at Unitil in that area. Keeping your main source of heat at 63 degrees, you're not helping the other side. We know that the hot air pushes the cold air out. That's why a hot air balloon is able to fly. So that was one of my comments to him, was to keep the heating gas unit on high. Use that as your main source of heat. I just made notes myself as I was listening to it. The other question I had, not the question, but one of the comments I had, because I do not want to ask questions, he was there for 2 winters. And this winter was the only time that that tub mysteriously froze. I'm going to get back to that because there was a second comment about the tub. That was the first comment in regards to a shower, and then the second comment that he made on it, and I made that remarks on it, that 2 winters. And this was the only one that it froze. The insulation pictures that was presented to you guys, those were insulation that was already in the building. None of those pictures, which I object to all of them, had dates on them. And we all know the minute you take a photo with the cell phone, you have dates. There was a date on the side of the document, not on the picture itself. Moving on to I'm sorry, can I continue?
Yep.
Yes.
One of the comments that kind of, bothered me, he kind of made a correction towards the end, was that the health inspector and the health department made a citation in regards to a heating back in April or May, and then it didn't get fixed or it didn't get addressed until September, which I was very surprised that somebody, well, scratch that, I'm going to come back a little bit. The only reason, first of all, the health inspector and the health department would have never allowed an open order that long without an agreement. And there was an agreement in place, which he kind of stated that a little bit towards the end. We, the three of us, had an understanding that when the order was issued, the weather changed drastically. We couldn't address the problem at the time because it started getting warmer and warmer and warmer very quickly. And we, all three of us, agreed to address the problem again on the fall. And I'm extremely surprised, but not surprised, that he mentioned that, because he was into an agreement. Because if it wasn't an agreement reached, we all know that that department would have any landlord in court within a matter of weeks. Well, I'm sorry, in a matter of days, correct that. Just to finalize, the wire situation and the plumbing, not the plumbing, but the wire situation, the insulation that he mentioned, we were there not too long ago with my 14 years of in-house, not in-house, but working with us, licensed electrician and the wire inspector for the city of Fitchburg. We inspected everything. We have even, again, for the third time, we've owned the property for 7 years. I've never, ever had changed heating units on one apartment more than I've done in this unit. Again, the wire inspector had made a suggestion to us to say, instead of doing baseboard heaters, why don't you do a fan heater, electric fan square heaters. Again, we went in there and changed it. The wire inspector then requested the BTUs and the size of room that those heaters would heat up. We provided that to him. Each one of the heaters that we installed for the second time heats up to 1,200 square feet, and 3 of them were installed again. So we have actually scratched that. I'm sorry. Yeah, 3 of them. 2 in each, 1 in each bedroom and 1 in the living room. So now we have 1,200 square feet times 3, which is 3,600 square feet of electric fan heaters, plus a kitchen 35,000 BTU pilot heater that they choose to keep on 63 degrees, and a bathroom fan heater, electric fan heater as well. So that's what we have on a 2-bedroom apartment, 680 square feet, first floor at 8 Taft Street, apartment 1. Thank you.
Oh, well, again, thank you. Just one comment about the amount of space that each of those heaters would cover, and I'm not meaning to take sides here in any way. I'm just saying in general, I suppose those heaters wouldn't heat that space if there was tremendous draft going through, or open windows and so on. So I think we always have to be a little bit careful about how much they can heat, because it would depend a little bit on how much draft there was and how much insulation and so on. I had one question.
Well, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I mean, and I don't make those, and unfortunately on those boxes of each equipment does not come, the amount of draft and the amount of, insulation in the walls that it should be there. But also, if we're talking about significant amount of draft on the windows, I think that it's fair to say that we would have been asked to do something about a drafty windows.
Again, thanks very much. It was just really for my own education that I brought that up. I'm going to ask Mr. Delmain, there, in some of these reports, it says status corrected.
Correct.
And does that mean that these things
So
have
when it means when I did my inspection on that day and the heaters were on, they met the temperature required by code.
Yeah. I'll just, another comment, going a bit at random here, but I know when Mr. Mahoney went and saw the apartment for the first time, it was in the winter. I don't know as if he took all his coats off and everything and sat around for a while to see how cold it was. So he might have gone in with his outdoor clothes on and not been able to tell just what the temperature was in there.
If I may, that would be correct. We were not there for a particularly long time. My mom was with me on both occasions. We weren't there for a particularly long length of time. And with the heat that was on, both the gas heater in the kitchen and the gas heater that was installed in the bedroom prior to me moving in, both of which were set on the highest possible temperatures.
Correction on the prior move-in. The heater was
DCO, may I
there
finish,
at the
please?
time of purchase on property.
Oh, and I was just going to ask about that. What do you say to Mr. Lano's contention that you could have put the, I guess it was the gas heater higher in the kitchen area? But you chose to keep it low.
So the time that Mr. Lano was referencing, as Mr. Domain can attest, every time that I had him come in to do an inspection, I knew prior that he was coming to do an inspection. I set all the temperatures with the gas heater. I would set it to 70 degrees. I would turn on all the electric heat so that way he could get the most accurate read. With the time that Mr. Lano was referencing back in February of this year, I was simply just told that maintenance was coming to look at the heat. I was not aware that this was going to be a temperature check or an inspection really of any kind. If it had been, all of those would have been set accordingly, and that way they could get the most accurate temperature. And to Mr. Lana's point, that particular day was not particularly chilly. So on that particular day, I had the temperature.
Question.
Felicio, may I finish, please? Thank you.
Well, quick question.
May I please
on you, Would
finish?
you just comment on it?
Just 1 minute, Mr. Lano. Let Mr. Mahoney finish, and then you'll have your chance.
Thank you.
It's
No problem.
hard not to. We can only listen to one person at a time.
Thank you, Mr. Baldessarian. So on that particular day, it was not particularly cold. Now, with the temperature reading that Mr. Lano was pointing to, it actually works in two different ways. So when you set the temperature, which was set at 64 degrees for that particular day, it reverts back to the temperature of the room after you actually set the temperature of the gas heater. So the temperature that it reads on the thermometer that he was referencing was 63 degrees in the room. However, I had it set at, I believe, 64 or 65. I don't remember specifically which one it is, but it was not, I never set it below 64, and that's generally on days where it's, relatively decent out. The colder it gets, the higher I turn it up, and as Mr. Lana referenced as well, I try not to use my electric heat because, as we're all aware, Unitil's electric rates are, frankly, very high. So I do try to use the gas heat as best I can. Unfortunately, it's not enough.
Gotcha. Thanks. Mr. Lana, you had some comments?
Well, I mean, yes, I have a comment since you didn't ask him that. What is me telling him that I am going to his apartment for a maintenance versus a temperature check would have anything to do with the temperature that I got the day I was there? So if I told them I was going for maintenance, or if I told them I was going for a heat check, it wouldn't have mattered because the temperature wouldn't have changed. One. Two, let's put all that aside, okay? The health inspector was there recently, in all rooms, and everything, at a very cold day. Now, I'm going to let Jay tell the temperature that he read on each room at the time he was there. Jay, could you please refer to that? I'm sorry to, having to ask you this question, but I just want to finalize this out.
That's what I'm here for. So we're talking about my last inspection on March 29th.
Correct, sir.
So on March 29th, it was about 32 degrees out, and I've met temperature 70 degrees in all the rooms.
70?
Members, if,
Brian can,
sorry.
Let me, do Sandy or Ian, do you have any questions that we haven't?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Jason, do you have anything else you want to add to this?
I can speak to my reports. I cited what I saw.
Well, I think you clarified that where it says status corrected, I presume that means,
My reports pretty much speak for themselves.
yeah,
Yep.
you went back and, I kind of, I don't know if I'm a good chairman of the Board of Health. I kind of come and say, think to myself, how can we solve this problem amicably without having the parties angry with one another? You're obviously not happy with the amount of heat that's there. Mr. Lana is contending that he's doing whatever he can to please you and make the heat appropriate, but apparently it's not working. You know, I don't want to get into, some people can live at temperatures of 60 and others need 70. You know, we're all different. But I guess what I'd like to ask you two guys is, how can you cooperate in some reasonable fashion to fix this so that Mr. Mahoney is comfortable both in summer and winter? And also, Mr. Lana, that maybe you don't have to rebuild the apartment building to do it, but is there some way to get this fixed? In my own house, which is pretty big and old, some of the rooms are cold, and in the bathrooms we have these ceiling fans that heat, and that's very nice because after 4 or 5 minutes in there, it gets warm, and it doesn't matter what the rest of the house is. It sounds like you've done some of that, Mr. Lana, in some of the rooms, if I'm understanding correctly, and those can be helpful. I know when you do have those things, it means a little more energy being expended, and so a little more cost to the person. Is there some kind of compromise that can be reached where you can reasonably put the facilities there to allow the heat to be there, if it isn't already? Granted, Mr. Mahoney might have to spend a bit more to expend that energy to keep the house warm enough. Could more insulation be put into places to eliminate cold air and draft from coming in some reasonable way? I'm just trying to come to a reasonable solution here for both of you. I know you made some recommendations too, Mr. Mahoney. Go ahead.
Yes, I would just like to say, as I mentioned in my PowerPoint, nothing that I feel I've asked for is without reason. No fixes that I've proposed are, I believe, unreasonable. I have not asked Mr. Lana nor Northeast to eliminate any and all drafts. That, again, would be unreasonable. Living in a old house that is 100 years old, over 100 years old, which both of us referenced, expecting some drafts and difficulty with, keeping the unit warm is to be expected. However, I do believe that it is reasonable for a tenant to ask his property owner to make reasonable accommodations through, as your suggestions, Mr. Bogdasarian, through, fixing some of the insulation issues that I showed you pictures of in the basement. Frankly, if, you go and walk down there, you'll see, the insulation hanging down, and it doesn't keep the cold air from the basement from coming up. So
You're on the first floor, the floor
I am on the
immediately
first
above
floor,
the
so,
basement.
I am directly impacted by that the most. So fixing the insulation there would be, really quite a huge boon in terms of energy costs and keeping, you know, some cold air out. Going through and, you know, kind of looking at, you know, the windows and just doing a quick assessment on how drafty they are and if any are, you know, old or if there's issues with them, then, you know, maybe, you know, they need to be replaced or you can, you know, make a simple fix to them that keeps some of that, you know, some of that air from coming in. I don't think that's unreasonable. Going into the closet, into the small bedroom, or into the living room, and, you know, putting kind of an insulating layer on the back wall, that would keep out a significant draft coming in from the hallway. And if you look on the back side of the building, one of the doors there, it's not a door that I use, but one of the doors there has been broken the entire time that I have lived there, and it's open. So it lets the cold air in all day, every day. So that hallway is frozen.
All right, I appreciate the recommendations. If we can move forward here a little bit. So my thoughts on this would be as well. I appreciate the comments and the recommendations. I'm going to take them, you know, I'm sorry, I see a hand up.
You talking to me or to the?
Sandy.
Yeah, I just have a few questions. Whoever wants to answer can answer, but how many units are in this house? Six, okay.
Six, yes.
And are there other issues with those people who are occupying those units?
Yes, there are. And if you don't mind, I can actually call up, he lives in the 3rd floor of 10 Taft Street.
Are you the fellow with the mask, or are you the one speaking? I can't tell who's talking.
Yes,
If you wouldn't mind standing at the podium and telling us who you are.
And the last question, though, real quick, is did you say that Mass Save came in and did an audit in the...
No, because I don't own the building.
That's something that Mr. Lana would consider doing?
So this is what this is what I referenced earlier. I was
His hearing.
until recently I never communicated with Mr. Lana because it frankly, you know, I wasn't really allowed to. I tried to call and send emails and it always got directed to Roxana Benavidez, who was the property manager. So any issue that I had was directed to her. I was notified that she left in November, and it was only by accident that I stumbled on Mr. Lana's email. So I've had that email for about 2 months now. So anything that I've sent to him would have been from about 2 months ago. But in regards to the Mass Save program, as I showed, I sent that to Roxana on April 5th of 2021. She said that she received it. I followed up on at least 2 separate occasions and never received a response back. So I assumed that they didn't even bother to look at it and that they weren't going to participate.
Okay. The gentleman at the podium.
So I have a,
Let me just.
I have a doctor's okay.
Yeah. The gentleman at the.
I was gonna say is that I have a doctor's appointment to go to. So to answer your question about the remedies between us and Mr. Mahoney, he also provided us with his notice. So he's vacating the apartment, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, within the next 2 weeks to 30 days. Upon his vacating the apartment, we're going into the unit and assessing everything that we need to. Even though that we didn't have to for the past 98 years, me or the previous owners. But now that these issues were raised, as we showed that we changed the electric heaters twice, we're going to continue to look what we can do to improve the draft and improve, you know, the apartment insulation purpose of it. So well, I can assure you that we're going to work on it.
All right, thank you very much. I don't want to keep you from your doctor's appointment, and it does, first of all, the gentleman at the podium, I don't think we can let you speak because we don't really have you on the agenda, and Mr. Lana didn't have opportunity to address your complaints or whatever you might have to say, so I don't think it would
I was only
be...
going to use him as a witness, sir.
Sorry?
I was only going to use him as a witness, sir.
Yeah.
If I might ask, Mr. Chairman, what the relevance to the heat is of another tenant when the heat is not the same throughout the entire building?
The reason that I brought Theo here today was to essentially have a backup to my claim as someone who was a tenant in the building who also experienced the heat issues in my apartment, as well as being the one who let me take a shower.
So a witness to your apartment
Yes.
is acceptable?
Correct.
A witness regarding his apartment is walking the legal line?
That is why I brought him here, as well as my mom today, as they are both witness to, again, the heat difficulties.
Yeah, as long as he addresses the apartment.
Yeah, I understand.
So I don't think a witness is necessary because I'm not questioning the ability of the apartment was cold or not cold. I think that Jason readings speak for itself, as he stated and I stated. So I think a witness would be just in case if I was questioned or anybody else was questioned the integrity of the temperature reading in the apartment. That's not what's in question here, I think. What's in question here, yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a question if I could, Mr. Chairman. On Mr. Delmain's January 17th report, he cites a draft coming from the basement in January, and as of April, that is still not corrected. Is there a way we could arrange, am I correct on that?
So, yeah, that's, I believe that was from the bathroom and the bathroom closet. When this hearing was put together, Felicio called me and said that he had actually put insulation down there. So I have not actually re-inspected that violation. So it's open, I haven't re-inspected it yet.
And just on that subject, the openings that go through the duct, those are still open, they haven't been corrected.
Yeah, no.
You know,
None of, to my knowledge, and having walked the basement as well as my bathroom, none of that's been done.
And again, is it true that you're going to be vacating the apartment?
So what Mr. Lana is referencing is I wished to go, instead of signing a new lease, I wish to go month to month. And I have until the end of this month to do another extension, month to month, which I will be doing. So his assertion is incorrect.
Well, again, I tend to approach these just with my gut reactions. It seems to me that Mr. Lana's made efforts to make the apartment more comfortable. He has put in supplemental heat. He's got things that'll, heat the Taj Mahal in terms of their size. But in reference to what I was mentioning before, those only can heat if there's not cold wind blowing through open holes and, windows that leak and so on and so forth. So it seems to me that you each have an argument. He's arguing that he tried to fix it by putting more heat in. You're saying that it's not working because there's too much draft coming in. So it would seem to me reasonable that we just try to fix the draft, and maybe that can be done. I don't know how much insulation is or how much caulk is that works. Some of these things that would help, or checking the windows. And if that could be accomplished, hopefully the heating system would be adequate to keep the place comfortable.
In my assessment, and it's only my assessment, if the draft was even reduced by 25%, the the heating systems would be enough. You know, but again, that would be alluding to my assertion that that Mr. Lana only does the bare minimum to get in compliance. He does not act on behalf of the true interests and habitable, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? Habitable, comfortable conditions.
I mean, an objection. I don't have to listen to these accusations now. So I think that it's very fair to say that we have some very competent inspectors. We have some very competent wire inspectors, and the report speaks for itself. So we can put, as you referred to, a Taj Mahal heating systems, but if you're not willing to use them.
Yeah, I'd rather also keep out, you know, personal things. I think we're just dealing with trying to make things comfortable, so.
Thank you.
I think if we can agree that, you know, it seems to me, and Mr. Domain can correct me if I'm wrong, the heating system that's there should theoretically be adequate. It's just that the insulation and the elimination of draft is not sufficient to allow that system to work the way it should. So if we can, in some reasonable way, correct the draft and make it so Mr. Mahoney isn't living outdoors, it would hopefully would work out. And we could perhaps at some point just inspect to see how things are going.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest, and I know Mr. Murray has a question, but it sounds like Mr. Lana has made a repair that the inspector has not re-inspected yet. Is there any objection to that occurring? Any objection to that?
So are you asking to do a new inspection?
Well, I'm asking him to take a look at, it sounds like a repair was made, and I think that needs to be re-inspected.
A repair wasn't made to my knowledge, but I'm more than happy to have Jason come.
Am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, I can't attest to whether it was corrected or
Right,
not
I
because I
know.
haven't done a reinspection. I was told that it was done by the owner, so I need to reinspect it to...
Mr. Lana, is that repair ready for re-inspection?
You may have gone to.
Yes, sir. Also, for a person that requested a hearing in front of you guys today, and if the repair was not completed, wouldn't we have photos of that today?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Can you repeat that?
So the question is, yes, the question is, the person that's in front of you today requested a hearing in front of all you guys.
Correct.
And they're sitting there saying that he doesn't believe that the repair was fixed. Wouldn't you have a picture of that repair that it wasn't fixed to show you guys that the repair wasn't fixed?
I don't think we want to get into pictures, which is why I'd like to do another inspection on what the repairs that you have done.
No problem. No problem, sir. Yes, I agree to that.
I think hopefully this can all be fixed amicably and at reasonable cost, and in the end up saving money on the amount of energy that's required to do this. It sounds as if there are a couple of open areas that go through where ducts used to go that probably can use a little work also.
I just want to remind everybody that the state sanitary code is minimum standards. There is no insulation requirement. However, if there are drafts, the recommendation is actually caulking. So I can attest that this building is 100 years old. I'm sure it's quite drafty. I've lived in older homes. An insulation may be a quick repair, and probably the easiest to tackle, but I do not want the board, I just want the board to understand that it's minimum standards. So ordering insulation is not something that the board can order through the state sanitary code.
No, I think we're just asking that
Eliminate the drafts.
the drafts be eliminated and that the building be made comfortable. It doesn't have to be able to heat to 85 degrees, I wouldn't think, and, you know, so you can run around with nothing on. But it should be made comfortable and shouldn't
68 degrees.
hang on to things from wind blowing through as you're trying to go room to room.
I'm sorry, did you
Yeah,
want
I
to?
have a couple of questions, just to clarify a couple of things for me. It looks like there's an inspection done on January 27th, 2022. And at that inspection, the bathroom was 38 degrees, the front bedroom was 58 degrees, and the drain into the shower was frozen. Mr. Dolmain, at that time, did you notice what the thermostats were set to?
I did not notice. I believe I actually had brought another inspector, and the heater in the bathroom was on when I was there for my inspection.
Okay.
Once again, the baseboards, they don't have a setting. It's kind of just by feel.
I'm just trying to get a feel here, because it sounds like these units, the heating units that are in there should be able to heat a space that's 3 or 4 times the size. And so they shouldn't have to be run on high to heat something that's 4 times smaller than what they're designed to. They should
As long
They
as
should be
there's
able to
not-
run. And then my other question was, you said you re-inspected in March. I don't have that inspection in front of me. And the temperatures were 70 degrees at that time in those rooms. What had changed between January and March?
So we had the electrical inspector come with an electrician. The electrical inspector suggested that a different type of heating unit potentially be put in. What was replaced back in September was your normal, regular baseboard, energy-efficient baseboard heaters. And those kind of just let the hot air out. The units that they put in at the end of March here, they are wall units that blow hot air out into the unit. So it's not just convection, I'm trying to think of the scientific terminology, but it's the hot air is being forced out into the unit, whereas the baseboard just kind of.
So those have been put in between the
So
January
it's a
inspection.
different style. It's a different style of electric heat.
Okay. And they had been put in between January and March.
Yeah. So the new units were put in
March 22nd.
March. Yes.
Then you inspected on the 25th.
And then I inspected on the 29th, and on that day it was about 32 degrees, 33 degrees out.
If you actually reference the little timeline I gave you, I actually wrote down, I went on weather.com and pulled the low and high temperatures for each of those days. So that way you would have a reference point.
Okay, so that was with the heaters turned up.
And
to
one
the
other
highest level.
significant comment that I forgot to mention, the day of my inspection, that Mr. Mahone was stating that I did not notify him that I was coming in for a temperature inspection versus a maintenance issue. Throughout my inspection, the room that he's referring to as his office, which is the second bedroom of a 2-bedroom apartment, was completely off. Was 22 degrees as I entered the bedroom. And I've asked him, why is this heater off? Completely off. So he said it was nice out for his comments. The room was at 22 degrees. And I asked him, why did he keep it off? He says, I don't put it on because I don't use that room. Then my comment was, this is a room inside of your apartment. 1, 2, you have a door that is a 2-inch gap from the floor. 3, it is a Holland door in the bedroom. So his comment was, I choose not to turn that heat on in that bedroom. I think that is a very important fact, that where you have a room inside of your apartment that you don't choose to keep it on, and it is one of the sources of a cold in the apartment.
If I may clarify, so what he's referencing is the office. What I have found in my
I stated that.
What I have found in my 14 months of living there is that by keeping the office door closed when I'm not using it, and keeping that heat off, it allows the gas heater in the kitchen, and if I need to, turning on the electric heat in either the living room or in my bedroom, it allows the heat to disperse more evenly. Whereas if I leave that door open and I turn on the heat, it's a precipitous at least 2-degree difference in the ability to heat the entire apartment. So while I have no factual evidence to back, Felicio, please, I have no factual evidence to back that up other than being there day in, day out, trying out different methods of adequately heating my apartment to the best of my ability. And this is the method that I personally have determined to be the most effective. And that is why I keep that door closed, except when I need to use it. And when I need to use it, I turn on the heat and it works fine.
So that
I
apartment
have no
unit was
further
clearly
questions, no further
designed
comment.
100 years ago with a gas heater in the kitchen, and that was probably the sole source of heat for the apartment unit. For 100 years.
Well, I know Mr. Lana has a doctor's appointment to get to, so I don't want to keep him too much longer. Are there any other questions or comments, or?
I would like to see the issues that were cited corrected.
And if I may, just one last thing. You had mentioned earlier the Mass Save Rise program offered through Unitil in the state. I just request that the board ask Northeast Properties and Mr. Lana to look into participating in that program, not only for myself, but for the building and the safety of all of the tenants in that building.
Would it be a reasonable approach to ask Jason to go back and conduct another inspection with the eye on draft and control of that? It does sound to me as if there's a lot of heating units in the apartment. It's just that they can't overcome the draft.
That is indeed correct, Mr. Baldessari.
And so if something could be done, if we could identify where most of the cold air is coming in, something be done reasonably to control that, it might be enough to solve the problems, and everybody will be happy. It'll cut down on the amount of energy you have to spend money on, and it doesn't sound as if it would cost Mr. Lana a tremendous amount of money to fix up a couple of the open areas and holes. I'm not asking him to rebuild the building, but just do the best we can to kind of control. My house is almost 100 years old, so I know what you're talking about. You go by doors and I still feel it. But so I think we replaced a lot of windows. It goes a long way to, I'm not asking you to replace all the windows, but I'm just saying if you can control the cold air coming in, it helps a lot. So would that be a reasonable thing to ask, that you go back and inspect for draft? And then,
I can go back and do an inspection and focus on drafts if I can find any.
Sure. And then you could just report back to us what you find, and and then we could let Mr. Lana know where those areas are that need to be fixed, and hopefully he'll do that, and within what we can ask him to do, which isn't more insulation, I guess.
We can't ask him, but I'm sure that's a fix that he'll probably.
Yeah, I just, and it's kind of a side, as I looked at the pictures that Mr. Mahoney brought with that insulation hanging down, I just wondered about what kind of a fire hazard that might represent. I know that isn't on the agenda, but I'm just saying Mr. Lana might want to protect his own building by being a little careful as to how that stuff is and where the electric wires are with regard to it. Don't want to end up with a fire there.
And in regard to your reference about the wires, when talking to Mr. Lana's electrician, he had to, and when they put in the wall heaters that Jason was referencing, they had to disconnect the baseboard heaters because the electrical system that they currently have there isn't strong enough to support the output of both heaters. So there's now 3 baseboard heaters in the unit that serve no purpose. So there's also that to consider, as well as if the baseboard heaters were to be activated again, a new electrical system as recommended by his electrician and in my statement of timeline, a new system would need to be
An
put in.
objection, because you know what? We don't have an electric inspector, we don't have an electrician present.
It was your
Also,
electrician that came on the 22nd of March to install the wall
He's not
heaters.
there to, he's not in present to say that, okay? So here's the thing, the baseboard heater that you're referring to is completely disconnected. This building was re-inspected scratch that. This apartment in the basement, in the exterior, was re-inspected by the wire inspector, Kyle. And there's no issues in there whatsoever. So
Okay, no, I didn't mean to
object
say
to
that.
everything was said just in the last.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that there was. It just, when I saw those pictures, it just looked to me as if there was a lot of potential hazard there. I don't consider myself an expert there, but I mean, I'm not used to seeing that sort of thing. You know, it may be perfectly fine and it's okay. I'm not used to looking at that. But I think hopefully if everyone's
Is there anything
comfortable.
else that we need to cover?
No, I'm just going to say, to summarize, hopefully what we'll do is just ask Jason to go back and look at the situation of drafts, see what he can come up with in terms of what would be readily remediable. And hopefully if those things can be fixed without too much expense, it'll allow the...
If there's anything there, yes.
If there is, yeah. And it sounds as if the heating system you have there is adequate. I mean, it sounds like it's big enough to heat a larger place. So if we can just kind of control the amount of cold air coming in, hopefully that will solve it and everybody...
Or if we can just put it on and keep it on.
Yeah, that might be part of it also. I mean, obviously you have to, any house in the winter is going to need to have some heat in it, otherwise it's going to get cold.
If I might say, that would be assuming a undue burden cost on individuals that live in what essentially necessitates low-income housing. Our energy bills are roughly around $500 or more every single month. And by leaving them on at the highest possible temperatures, which is where Jason recorded his most recent readings, was with every heater on at its highest possible level, that would, you know, in all likelihood be assuming a electrical cost or utility cost of over $1,000, which would essentially be paying rent twice every month.
Yeah. No, I understand that, and that's why I'm saying I think the first thing to contend with is the cold air coming in. Hopefully, if we can get that under control, you can keep the heaters at a reasonable level. You know, they're not blasting and on constantly. Again, it seems to me that if we can stop some of the cold air from coming in, it may well solve this problem, and everybody will be happy.
I concur.
So I guess we need to make a motion. That's what you're looking at. So
You're a good motion maker.
I don't know. So I would like to make a motion to have Jason, our health inspector, go out to the property and do another assessment and report back to the board of his findings, and I guess and report back within the next couple of weeks? Or, I mean, when do you think you would make,
I can probably get to his unit.
I'll see you Tuesday,
If you're available Tuesday, I can be there
Tuesday
Tuesday.
morning, 8 o'clock.
Um,
Or can you do 9?
Tuesday, I can't do Tuesday. I can do Monday or Wednesday.
What time Monday?
Let's do, what works for you, 9?
Jason,
9 works for me.
9?
Yeah, 9 works for me.
I'll be there at 9 o'clock on
Hey, Jason.
Monday.
Sounds good.
hey, Jason.
Yep.
I would like to be there, and Monday I'll be out of town. Is it any possible to make it comparable for both of you guys on Wednesday?
Can you do Wednesday? So the owner can be there as well?
I think it would be good if Mr. Lana could be there as well. Be fair.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can do Wednesday.
So Wednesday, 9 o'clock?
Wednesday works.
Wednesday, 9 o'clock, Felicio.
so I'll revise the motion then to read, for Jason to go out and do another inspection on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., and then report back to Steve. And I guess we don't need to wait until our next meeting, because that would be in May, right?
Right.
So, based on what Jason finds, I guess, then those corrections should be made.
Right.
Is there anything else that?
Well, it sounds like you're sustaining the order, more or less.
What do you mean?
There is an order already for him to,
Okay, so do we even need a motion?
well, your duty here in this hearing is to rescind, modify, or sustain.
Okay, so the motion is to sustain.
Nice second.
Very simple.
No, I concur with
Okay,
that.
very good, thank you.
So I think that pretty much ends the hearing. I want, before you guys go, I want to thank you for your civil behavior, both you and Mr. Lana. It's a refreshing change from some of the recent meetings we've had. So I very much appreciate your civil behavior and reasoned approach to this, and hopefully we can get it solved in amicable fashion.
Thank you, Dr. Bagdasarian.
Thanks.
Thank you.
First, you need to close the hearing.
Oh, do I have to bang the gavel to do
Yeah.
that? I'll close the hearing then.
And then,
Thanks for your patience.
and now the hearing's closed.
Thank you,
and
Brian. Thank you, Felicio.
We've completed the agenda, so
I would come up to shake all of your hands, but I don't know if that's permissible with COVID.
We can do it. We can do an air shake.
Yeah, okay.
Appreciate the gesture.
well, that's.
Thank
I don't
you.
At
think
this
it's
point, you
gonna
just
be
never know anymore, you know?
So that means that unless there is nothing else we could entertain a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I have to read
I
this.
second.
Oh, go ahead, oh, sorry.
That concludes our agenda for
Oh,
this meeting.
yes, that's right, sorry.
Thanks. I have one, I think. I might have.
Where I referenced the conversation that I had with the electrician.
Okay.
This is part of the hearing, you can't, it's closed.
I'm not
It's closed.
trying to influence, I just want to point out that that's where I made that.
So, you can't reopen the hearing, you can't.
All right. That concludes our agenda for this meeting. The next regular meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Health is scheduled for the first Thursday of May. I'm not sure what the date is. I'd have to look.
So if I could make a suggestion, I am not able to make the first Thursday in May.
Okay,
Would the second Thursday be acceptable?
let me just see.
Yeah, 12, that would be the 12th of May, correct? 12th of May.
May 12th?
No, I might be in Chicago in a trial that day. And actually, I could do the third Thursday, the 19th. I don't know how that works for everybody.
Works for me.
That's fine by me.
The 19th, be all right?
Yes.
Is that, can you make that, Steve?
I can.
We don't really need you, but
Now that we've got all this written down,
But
we
then
don't
you
need-
hold your meeting on the first Thursday of May.
all right, the next meeting will be May 19th of 2022 at 5 PM. And now, I may entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
I'm in favor. I'm supposed to ensure it's unanimous, so I guess it is.
Close it. There you go.